to the jungle. Here we are again, gang. In total insanity land. I screwed up a little bit in this page, and I'm gonna have to fix it in Photoshop. I don't think I'm ready for this page today. It's a little on the tedious side. This one was nice. This worked out fairly nicely. My colorist sent me a couple pages, and I am collaborating with a friend who is sort of a member of the Dissident Right White Art Collective. He'll be doing the letters for me. So that's a thing. That's kind of in development. I guess I can't really do. I could do a little bit on this. I'll do that, and then move forward. So nobody's here yet, and I'm just talking to myself. That's okay, because we get along so well. Yeah. Well, you know what they say, it's lonely at the top, so no, I'm kidding. My fans will be rolling in at some point here. I'm getting more and more visitors, new visitors and regular visitors coming in regularly, which is awesome. I really like that. It's nice because you get to know people, over time. And it's good, developing those friendships. Got a little Pink Floyd going on in the background. Dark Side of the Moon. I have it in my will that I want Dark Side of the Moon played at my funeral. I don't know, is that weird? Hey there, Victorian Time Traveler. Once again, man, you are ahead of the curve, dude. Like, wow, dude. It's great that you're here. I appreciate you coming in first. What is it you like about the show, Mr. Time Traveler? Those things, I mean, I just do me, I don't think. But it's always helpful to actually ask the question and kind of get a sense, of what people get out of the show, and it helps me to, keep doing things the right way in some way. I actually have some really cool stuff to show you guys in a bit. Let me first say hello to Ronaldo Gomez. Fun fact, every new A Time episode of Dragon Ball releases, Mexico sees a drop in cartel activity. Wow. Well, you better play Dragon Ball Z every freaking day, every hour of every day. Hello to Cosmic Incorporated. Hi, oh my God, Victorian Traveler, haha. You guys are new to the channel, so I'm going to give you a special show. Anytime somebody comes and they're new, then I got to get them acquainted with Donald Kent comic book art live. So I will show you some of the pages that I'm doing. But today is kind of a special day because I'm actually going to review this magazine. I did the cover art and the back cover art for this magazine, and there's also an article interview about me in there, and it's pretty sweet. That's coming up later in the show, among other surprises. But let's take a quick look at some artwork we got. The mighty Patty Irishman here with his shillelagh. So you guys behave, okay? I want to say hi to Tommy John. It's always a special show. You guys, man, I don't know, man. I'm going to get choked up. Don't make me cry. You don't want to see a grown man cry, okay? Don't do that. As I was just mentioning a little bit ago, we're going to look at some books and magazines later in the show. I did that last night, and it seemed like such a kick-ass thing to do. Went over my old comic book collection. I have like an insane, wonderful collection of books, and we're just going to look at some cool shit. Stuff that I've been influenced by over time, and blah blah blah, all that good shit. So here we go. Let's look at the Militiaman story. We got a couple new buddies here with Cosmic Incorporated and Ronaldo. I want to welcome them to my community by giving them a little tour of some of the artwork in the Militiaman story. Feel free to chime in, chat, talk, ask questions, make comments, goof off, fool around, do whatever. You know, this is a free speech platform. I mean, yeah, of course it is YouTube, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So, but I get into a lot of pretty hot topic stuff. I don't shy away from, you know, hot potatoes in the political sphere, cultural sphere, but I also like to talk about shit like UFOs. And Mexico, by the way, is one of the biggest hotspots for UFOs in the world. It's got insanely amazing footage of like crazy, all kinds of amazing UFO related things. For some reason, there's something about Mexico, the landmass, that has a really deep relationship with ancient aliens. It's quite interesting. But anyway, I'm getting you guys a little bit acquainted with my art, my story. We got Tommy John is saying it's always a special show. Thank you. Everyone needs to hit likes big time and share. Share this link in your social media so others can find out. Victorian Time Traveler asks, you asked what I like about your streams. Okay, well, your artwork sucks and I hate you. You're a big jerk. No, that's not what he said. Your artwork is amazing. I like you as a person. Well, at least one of us does. And it's amazing. I'm just relaxing to listen while I take a break from working on my own stuff. Very sweet, dude. Very, very cool. I kind of think that's, you know, one of the great things about YouTube is listening to cool shows that are informative, funny, interesting, they touch your heart, you know, and then finding your tribe, I guess. I know that's kind of a lefty thing to say, but you know, people who have common interests, common values, and then just the sheer entertainment of the art, you know, I think in the story as it unfolds, you know, getting to know the character and his tragedies and his victories and what's going down, Brown, you know, seeing what's happening. What's the scoop, Betty Boop? I do play some music in the background, but you know, I get copyright strikes for that, so I don't know. I wish I could play it louder and make it more like a party. You know, it's shots on me all around. Everybody gonna have shots and music and dancing, going crazy, going wild, kicking some serious ass, as you can see here in the cool comic book action sequences. So, but thank you, Victoria, and I appreciate that. And that's my general question to all my followers. What is it about the show that you like? That would be really helpful. I would really appreciate that if you could talk to me about that, just so I know and I can do more of it. I'm working on rebuilding myself, and you know, it's like you work a full-time job, you got shit to do, single dad, all this yada yada, but I've got a couple hours a day to dedicate to the movement, to my art, to the culture, And so I want to make that time count. You know what I'm saying? And the more you tell me what it is you like and what I can do for you, the better I can deliver. You know what I'm saying? All right. Counter Rev is here. Howdy. Hippocratic Oath is here. It must be all those heart surgeries at the pyramids. I know you're referencing something I said earlier, and I'm late. You gotta hit me up with the context there. Jay Bishop is awesome. Oh my God, the lovely Jay Bishop is gracing the chat. Welcome, and she says, "Hey there, Don. Hello to Victorian Time Traveler. Woo woo." So, how do you guys know each other? Are you in the No White Guild community? Probably. It's interesting how all these communities, I don't know, there's a sort of a crossroads, I suppose. Speaking of which, this is a subject that I'm interested in, is how to create some kind of network where all of this stuff converges. You know what I mean? Why are aliens flying around Mexico? Oh, I get it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I knew there would be some related thingy. Boom. Anyway, what do we got? Gratitude for emergency heart surgeries. A lot of blood spilled on that continent there, in that country area. So let's get to work, shall we? I'm gonna get a little bit of this going. So what's going on today? Connecting communities. Let's talk about that. Got some interesting news to share. Yes, I know Vic from there. He's a talented musician and a good man. Well, that is most excellent. There are two groups that reached out to me that are nationalist groups that are building culture. And they actually have IRL events. That there's Emily Yukis is speaking at one of them. I should be speaking at one of them because I'm Donald Kent, but this old jackass doesn't have money for a plane ticket and a hotel for these two events. So that's kind of depressing, but it's just the reality of where I'm at right now. So not very glamorous, but the good news though is that when you can't, I don't know, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. You know what I'm saying? So I am connecting people in both of these organizations. I am forwarding presentations that I've recorded, and I'm gonna just keep pushing forward. Keep moving along with the plan and help everybody. You know what I'm saying? So one of the visions that I have really is to be able to lead basically campaigns of kind of like cultural war campaigns, if you will, whereby the artists of our sphere, of which there are many, I don't think the average person in the movement even is aware of that. It's obviously on my radar, being me, but to organize the artists to do themed projects, and then to give the graphics to organizations that are known for like canvassing or putting posters around in public, so that we could say like, okay, for May we're gonna do a theme on the white ethno state and why we need one, and something something something, and then have artists create art on the theme, and then have like a QR code that leads back to some site that is the hub of like getting whites informed and on board, and to like form local groups, communities of this kind. So everything's got to go IRL. That's the new thing, and many of us know that. Many of us are involved in stuff like that, but it's not that easy. It's not that easy. If you're lucky enough to know a few people IRL, where you live or what have you, frigging awesome. God bless you for that. That's great. But we're all living these secret lives on the internet with like fake names and shit. And you don't know if like there's people a block away from you that are thinking and feeling and saying the same things. And so yeah, there's probably dangers to getting that shit together. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's kind of we're at a place where we have to do that. Now, my thinking, though, is more along the lines that we already exist. I feel like we have to find a way to bridge to the normies. I talk about this a lot on the show. I hope it's not annoying or like repetitious. But I do think like at least I can share some ideas on the topic, and you guys, of course, can reply and contribute, brainstorm, whatever. So there it is, and there you go, and now you know forevermore. Ain't it grand? Ain't life grand? All right. Let's check the chat a little bit, so I'm not too far behind. Victorian, the aliens came down from New Mexico for vacation. Ah, okay. Hippocratic Oath. I love hiking in New Mexico. I have a Freemason frenemy that showed me around. Oh God, wow, that's pretty wild. My understanding is that like if you have to be at a high level within the Freemason group to actually know what it really is. That the average, people that are in the group just think it's like a community service, organization, and they don't actually know what the fuck it actually is or does. I could be wrong, but like some years ago, one of my good friends was like, "Oh, I want to join the Freemasons," and I was like, "What the fuck? Where did that come from?" I didn't know anything about the Freemasons at the time, but I was like, "What do they do? What's it about?" And it's like, "Well, it's a fraternity, it's an organization. You do community stuff." I just like the idea of belonging to kind of like a men's club organization type thing. And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." I'm not so sure about like drinking baby's blood or whatever. Though. I don't know. I think they might have skipped that part in the brochure. Not sure. I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to that. I'll tell you a little story about him. He was actually is a kung fu teacher, and he was also a super close friend. But and we ran a sparring club together. But he had some Muslim students, and they were from Jordan, I believe. And I'd spar them all the time. We talked a lot. They were just like dudes at his school. And I would spar them and hang out, whatever, talk, yada yada. I wasn't friends like here's my number, let's get together on the weekend kind of thing. But we were polite and cordial to each other and all that stuff. And there was definitely something very obviously different about them. Not so much the cultural thing, but the Muslim thing. It was really like you had to like really, really try hard to ignore things that they would say that were very weird. But looking back though, like I remember them, that was some of the first time I ever heard like things about the Jews, and I was like, you're not supposed to say that, or whatever. But they were very intense. Sparring them was really intense. I'm getting off the topic. So my point is that I started finding out about Islam and posting shit on Facebook about it. And those guys engaged me, criticizing Islam. And next thing I knew, like my friend was no longer my friend, because I don't know, because I guess he likes 9-year-old marriages and clitorectomies or something. I don't know. No, he had to, he chose between his students and his friend. So, welcome to Liberalism 101. And that actually just happened to me the other day. I talked about that friend. I knew that would happen. I'm not going to fuss. I'm not going to waste any more time like being upset about that. But, moving on. All over the place. Let's see, connecting. So I have a question for you guys. I'm doing a little research. But okay, let me first read the chat from Touch here. Nice of them to say, but I don't think I'm good at all. I'm almost never practiced. My brothers are, though. Even the starting oath should tell you it's not for decent people. Each oath builds on the next. Damn, I didn't know about that. Time Traveler says, the Freemasons tried to recruit me, and I turned them down. I'll never call another man worshipful master. Ugh. Oh, God. Hamfari is here. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, a true man, a true hero, a true warrior, a true poet, and an amazing friend. I'm very, very, very happy to be in your presence, sir. You're an inspiration to me, Hamfari. And I never know if I'm pronouncing that name right. Glorious greetings. Okay, American Counter Rev is here. Yep, Masons. Brandon is back. Hey, Brandon. I think you're the Brandon that was here the other night. Oh yeah. I know your little face icon is cool, right? Batman. Hi, do Batman. Hi, yes. Okay, yes. Crap. I don't have any Batman drawings near, like, handy. Instead, I'm doing Donald Kent because I'm Batman. Sorry. I just had to do that. Had to. Okay, so here's my question for my research. Describe to me a day in the life of the ethno-state. What is the normal behavior? What is the stuff that people do in the ethno-state? And I know that kind of sounds like almost a mundane question, but I feel like nobody's ever asked this question. Nobody's ever visualized just what it is we'll be doing. What will it be like? Granted, I see in my mind like Oriana. Is that how it's pronounced? That place in South Africa. But what's like a day in the life in the ethno-state? And so I look forward to seeing your descriptions in the chat. I think that should be fun. Where I'm going with this is, what do we need to do to start behaving like we live in one? You see, because here I am doing all this work to try to create, design plans to build community and stuff. And I imagine, people are going to ask me like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I feel like it's not like an activist thing where like, okay, you got to go door to door and get people to sign something. No, it's not that. Instead, it's more like we know who we are and then act accordingly, I think. Does that make sense? That's kind of a thing. Let's see. I sub. Okay. Oh, that's Humfari says likewise, brother. God bless you. All right, we got a message from Brandon, who's just being silly, silly Billy. Here, I'll post this one because it's so intellectually stimulating. Humfari says all great societies are built upon men embracing the reality of being expendable for his people to thrive. Whoa! See, I told you, we're talking warrior talk here. So it's in a sense, I want to say desire, the readiness to die for your people. That's powerful shit right there. That's freaking powerful, man. One thing that came to my mind as I was contemplating this is acting in a way that is literally the fucking opposite of everything in society as we know it. So, for example, society is extremely commercialized. It's this whole shop till you drop kind of culture. And people define themselves by the clothes they wear, the cars they drive, and it's very materialistic. So I feel like that's got to go. That kind of thing. I'll be honest though, I think whites, and I'm not super crazy about this, but I think we are very status conscious, and that's not. It's just a reality. I'm not going to try to judge it. It's just a reality. So, in what way would whites in the ethno state judge each other? What would be the status per se? And I think if we could tie it to nationalism, you know what I'm saying? Tie it to sacrifice for your people. You see what I'm saying? Wow. I mean, that's pretty powerful right there. That could be a thing, because every generation is just getting worse. You know what I'm saying? Generation X, I feel is like the one that really kind of dropped the ball in a way. Like somehow or other, those 80s kids, they grew up to kind of just be all about themselves and they lost some kind of like family structure. I think this is where like feminism took root. The 90s, of course, that's really the beginning of like all things degenerate in the sense of like you had like, hip hop was going big. You had things like Nirvana, grunge, that whole thing. You know what I mean? And um, and then the 2000s just kind of culminated all of that shit. So I do think like knowledge of who we are, where we've been, our history, like common knowledge of mythology and things like that. But that takes a lot of education and a lot of time and resources. And how are you going to make people want to learn that stuff? You see what I'm trying to say? It's in a sense, it's a personality type, I guess. We got a lot of guys like this in our movement, but how do we turn it into a kind of mainstream culture? You know what I'm saying? I think it's, there's to degrees that it is kind of happening, here and there and something, but I'm just sort of curious about how to codify it and to replicate it, and to institute it, if you know what I'm saying. It's like if I were just to kind of walk up to a random white person and say, hey, I got a question for you, you know, like, and then like dove into this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I think that, you know, there's probably different kinds of reactions that they might have, like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that, or it's really not something I've ever thought about. It's not kind of on my radar, or who knows? But to just ask them the question puts the seed in their mind. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah. So I'm gonna check the chat in a second here. All right, that came out kind of nicely. All right, let's check the chat. There's quite a bit in here. All right, hold on. Hamfari says, all great. I already read that. American Rev says, ethnostate kids play in the street, families going for walks in the park, and society has social cohesion and high trust. That is so beautifully succinct and simple. That is exactly what I wanted to hear. So I guess in a way, I would be asking whites, like, would you like society to return to how it was in, say, the 60s? Not 60s, maybe that's too bad, too far back, the 80s, you know? Victorian says, day in the life of ethno-state for me. I wake up, kiss my wife, good morning. Go out, feed the animals, start moving the water out in the fields, deal with 1,000,001 random problems. Hamfari says, that's how you achieve peace, love, and happiness. Hamfari says, Gen Z is Iceland. In Iceland is surprisingly glorious. Oh, that's beautiful. Victorian time traveler, I'm so sick of people my age saying they want to go back to the 90s. Race relations were not good in the 90s. We were just sheltered from it, and there weren't cameras everywhere. Good point. That's wow, the camera thing. Hippocratic Oath adds, day in a life, the Amish lady feels safe to invite you over for tea. Wow, good one, man. Your neighbors are off to the nearest cathedral being built. Yeah, they're building it, right? You are adding cherubs to the corners of your paintings. That's just charming. Very, very charming. Heartwarming. You flip on the news to see a little Mexican Fuentes tell you about the God Emperor building a fleet bound for the Draco constellation to finish off the Grabblers and their AI. Wow. Dude, that's like, this is like sci-fi. Call Ridley Scott, man. Holy shit, dude. Got the next big movie script right there, bro. Get on it. Ridley, I got this great script for you. You gotta check it out. It's by my buddy, Hippocratic Oath. Hippocratic Oath? What kind of name is that? Anyway, Hamfari says my country was an ethno state 3 years ago. See, I think of Iceland as like, you know, like an oasis, like a haven for whites. You know, I'm like, I want to run away and live there. You know. EW9 Design. I sneak in and watch from time to time, and I just had to say you are very skilled with your lines. I've been drawing for my whole life, and I'm impressed. Well, God bless you, sir, ma'am. I don't know which one you are, but I appreciate your kind words, and thank you. So keep working on it. Hamfari says 99% white, now it's 75. Yeah, I read an article a while back about, like, you know, the first Jews to create a synagogue in Iceland. You know, oh, it's too white here. We have to, you know, that shit. And like anywhere the Grabblers go, it's the death, you know, of civilization. Anyway, moving on. T-Rad Dad is here to save the day. Awesome to have you back, bro. Hey, Donald and crew, Friday Eve, baby. Is today Friday? It's Thursday. It's Thursday, right? Hamfari, by the way, guys, I can't find my glasses anywhere. I apologize for my typing. Oh, that's why. No, no, no. I hate it when you lose your glasses. I'm wearing mine right now. I hated the day when I had to admit to myself that I needed glasses. Both my parents wore them, and I'm like, you know what? Just get used to it, bud, because it's coming, you know. Anyway, there it is, and now you know. Borrows. Got a little Pink Floyd in the background. And all that you do, all that you say. All right. I'm sorry, by the way, guys. Oh, I read that. Hippocratic oath. Do you have a monocle? Well, I don't, but you would love this little mustache that I have. It's just like right. It's just like kind of right there. It's like a little apostrophe on under my nose. No, I don't. I'm kidding. Where the Talmudian tribe goes, the fire follows. Yes. Irishman says, I think the state should be organized around community rather than oneself, functional roles, rural workers, urban workers, mothers, soldiers, etc. The focus of meaning gained via honor and belonging. So, like these, all of these things you guys are saying are I'm taking note. And like the sense of belonging, the sense of having meaning and purpose through the service to the community. These are very, very, very central things. I think this is excellent. You guys are giving me really good answers. Okay, hold on a sec here. Hello from Mr. Ulfric. All right, great to have you, big guy. We're discussing what would a day in the life of the future ethno-state be like. What are your thoughts on that matter? And the purpose, of course, is to try to get a clearer idea of actually, you know, what it is we need to do to make that happen, to make that come to life. You know what I'm saying? Okay, hail Donald. Tommy says you have a radio voice. So that's very cool of you. I appreciate you saying that. I'll tell you a funny story. I've actually been on like local news and national news. Like I shouldn't say too much about it because you know maybe that might dox me or something. But anyway, when I was being interviewed, the guy who interviewed me was like, as soon as he met me, immediately he was like, "Wow, you got a great voice. You should be a weatherman." A weatherman. A weatherman. I was like, okay, that's curious. Like, I mean, I know I've got a certain like a radio voice, a podcast voice, or something, but a weatherman, you know, it's like, is that all you got? You know, I don't know. It was just kind of like, all right, I think I can do better than a weatherman. Not that there's anything wrong with weatherman. I'm not trying to take a dump on those guys. You know, probably get criticized the most because you know they're not always accurate. Anyway, somehow that's worked in my advantage. Meaning, like, I think one of the I don't know qualities of my show is that people just enjoy listening to me talk. You know, and it's so I kind of lucked out in that way. There you go. I think my singing voice is better though. Speaking of music, let's get into that. So, let's see. Where do I go? Okay, so the dude that I'm recording with is moving his studio. Um, Unfortunately, he said that it's looking like it's probably not going to be set up until the fall. So that's quite a ways out, and I'm like, ah, shit. So I get back to another dude that I'm working with. He's like programs house music, and we're gonna be working together. So he does have some kinds of recording equipment, and he's hooked up with like industry people. Like if once we get moving, the music that we make is gonna go national because he just knows the right people. He's got the connections. You know what I'm saying? Now it is house music, so it's not like like a day in the ethno state. Whoa, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not gonna be like that. I think I can Trojan horse in our messaging, which I'll find a way, But there's basically the way that they've got it set up is I can actually make money doing music with these guys, which is pretty fucking sweet. Um, so that's in development. He's working on just kind of getting recording shit set up so that we can make that happen. Um, so that's exciting. What else? I have like a little cheat sheet of topics to talk about. Let's read on. Read on. T-Rad Dad showing up to community hearings is a great way to hold people accountable and help and keep harmful agendas, dogmas at bay. That's good. That's very good. I would say like having some kind of a rule where everybody collectively uh, understands and does everything that they can to stop Marxism. You know what I'm saying? Like anywhere and in any way, if the rise of these type of ideas start coming up, that everybody would just automatically know to shut it down, to shame it. You know what I'm saying? If someone starts talking, oh, this and that, LGBT, diversity, equity, inclusion, and they start using those talking points, that everybody is capable of just shutting it down, straight away. Shaming it, whatever. Like, there's no, as I learned once again in a very bitter way by losing a good friend recently, that you cannot fucking argue with liberals. There's no, especially women, they don't, it's just not how it works. They're not in this world, They're not literally in fucking reality. But it's gotta be pulled out by the roots. I would imagine the National Socialists kind of had a culture like that, like when they were like, all right, we're gonna burn these books. Everybody knew what the fucking books were. It wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna roast some marshmallows. They knew what they were doing. You know. Okay, let's read on. Ulfric says feeding chickens, watering and harvesting crops, playing in the pond at noon break. That's the gist of the ethno state. Hippocratic oath says as long as you point to the clouds with a straight arm and flat palm. Ha ha, yes. Yes, sending my heart out to you. Oh my God, T-Red Dad says the Jeff Winston songs are the ES soundtrack. I was actually gonna bring up. That's on my little list of things to talk about today. Is Jeff Winston? His birthday is coming up, and so. Do you guys know who Hyrith is? That they were never married, but they had a kid together, and she was one of the top contributors to the White Art Collective. So she's working on a memorial piece for him right now. It's it's heartbreaking. You know, I had a really 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 great friendship with Jeff, and it's just it does hurt to kind of look back and think about what we lost. We lost so much when we lost him. We lost so much, you know. Um, yeah, it's just a thing, you know. I mean, one can kind of think through like what he started, all the work that he did, how dedicated he was. It's exemplary. Like if we had 100 Jeff Winstons, we would win tomorrow. You know, it's the man was he left an amazing legacy. You know, I would say if it weren't for him, where would I be? You know what I mean? Like he gave me a home to go to. You know what I'm saying? Like without the White Art Collective, where would I fit in? You know, I mean, I just kind of be another shitlord, I suppose, out there. But through as soon as I saw the existence of the White Art Collective, like immediately my head just did somersaults, and I thought, like, this is it. Like this is it. I can do so much within this culture, this group, you know. And I did, and I continue to do so. In fact, I am the only one of the core members, really, I would say, like, Lord Wolfshield is still out there doing stuff. He's got his little community. He does his shows. He puts out a yearly, what he calls the Fedora Favorites, which are, it's like a CD collection of all the songs from our culture that came out that year, you know. And he's having a show to debut that. I'm going to be on the show. I don't have the date off the top of my head. It's actually coming up sort of soon, I think. I'll have some music in there. Anyway, let's get back to the chat. Hamfari says, just take a trip for 3 weeks to Iceland. I'll house you, and we will utilize my studio for glorious. Oh, dude. How can I make that happen? I gotta make that happen. What's the best? I would imagine the summer is like the best time to come. Oh shit, I gotta make that happen. How am I gonna do that? I mean, I was just talking about how I didn't have money to like travel a few states over for a weekend, you know, because like I'd have to, you know, like I have a job, I got bills to pay, you know, all of that faggotry, you know, Zog, you know, the slavery of Zog. So now there's something about the ethno state right there, is that everybody should have time. You should have fucking time to pursue things. You shouldn't be a slave to taxes. You know what I mean? You should know that like I'm not gonna get kicked out of my home. You know, or for rent or mortgage or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like to have true freedom, you know, in that regard. Um, and then we can grow. You know what I mean? We can actually prosper. I heard something about like, you know, what was it, like peasants only worked so many months a year, and then the rest of it was dedicated to, you know, the arts and learning and music and literature, this, that, and the other thing, building churches or whatever. Okay, let's read. Let's read. Boy, you guys are on fire, man. How am I gonna catch up? Rest in peace to Jeff. Hello again, Brandon. T-Rad Dad says I used to tune in on Friday nights, daughters dancing around the basement to whack music. That's so cool. Oh, what a charming memory that is. Speaking of which, I gotta go put some music back on. I notice it's really dry in here. So give me a second. I'll keep reading. Mm. I'm actually indulging myself in a little beer this evening. Nice, rich beer. Mmm. Mmm. Delightful. Absolutely delightful. Moving on, Patty Irishman. Do people here think that tech like internet as phones should be limited in some way? Good question. Just today, OpenAI released a Ghibli image creator so to mock Hayao Miyazaki, who believes AI negates the human soul. So that's a big question. I think I'll leave that open to the floor. I think there's some obvious answers to that, especially considering the future ethno state. Yeah. There's some pretty interesting. I'm Here's a thought that I had. Pardon me. I see like evenings around the fire. I see like having a town center with like a big bonfire and people coming, talking, singing, sharing food and like stories, you know, being a community in the older sense of the word, you know what I mean? So you don't have to come, but it's there. It exists, and people can come in and feel a sense of belonging. They don't have to be alone. Now, nowadays what that is fucking bars, and I'm not talking about that. Again, it's like having a big bonfire. Definitely music, dance, stories, something that there might have to be like an orator or somebody who kind of leads such a thing, you know. But it would be the time when you're off your phone. It's like you're on your phone for whatever in the day, but in the evening, put it away and go out and live life. You know what I mean? Like go out and like be social, be a human being. Does that make sense? I think that is a lovely idea. Okay, especially consensus. Hamfari says all you need is time and a plane ticket. I'll take care of the rest. Hamfari, Ice Cabaders Ger 6 weeks paid summer leave by law. Icelanders have 6 week paid summer by law. Shit. See, this is the difference between your country and my country. Is I'm a fucking slave to Zog. It's just nothing is. America, land of the free. Oh, really? Free to be poor. Um, anyway. Okay, let me grab this for a sec. Very light lines, very deft. So nice. So nice. I like drawing boobs. Sorry. I'm sorry I said that. I shouldn't have said that. Moving on. So, toss some jazz on. I that should I? I mean, that means I got to get up and I got to find something, and then I got to work through the commercials, and I'm just trying to get the flow going. You know what I'm saying? Big guy. I do play jazz on occasion. I love jazz. I don't love jazz. I like jazz, and it depends on who it is I'm listening to. I got a huge argument with Richard Spencer about jazz. He hates jazz. And I just had fun with it. Like I don't turn those things into like life and death. Like I'll never talk to you again. You know, I'm not like that. Like I think there's a lot of people on the internet that you disagreed with me about something. I can never talk to you again. Um, it was kind of a funny back and forth. Stick that. It's actually pretty hard to draw. Oh, moving on. So I don't think I'll be going dancing this Saturday. I have an old friend that I haven't seen in a long time. He's popping in for a visit. Gonna play catch up. You know, have a good time. He's one of us. I mean, he's not super. He's not really, into the racial thing so much, but he's definitely a pretty hardcore patriot, and he's done a hell of a job as a shitlord. Like really, really great shitlord. The dude's really out there. A lot of respect. That's kind of what I was talking about, like knowing your tribe, so to speak. Finding people that you can really be yourself with, that you can talk with, etc. Let's read on. Anytime. Jazz. Oaf says we need to build a dragon longship so Donald can get to Iceland. That's the only way to travel right there, my man. The only way. Can you imagine me pulling up to Iceland in that ship? I'd have to be dressed like the Northman or something, you know what I mean? Like, did you guys see the Northman, Robert Eggers? I love that film. Moving on, that's pretty cool though. What a cool image. Frick says, I may have found a clever idea for red pilling new audiences. We'll have to share in private sometime. Okay, well, reach out to me, brah. Icelanders. O/Nizash. Okay. Put on Timo Lassie Finnish jazz music. Huh. Timo Lassie. I'll have to look that up. Ulfric says, well, Richard walked away from us, so his criticisms are now void. Still wish him well, though. Yeah. I catch him once in a while here and there on, what do you call it, on fucking Substack. And, he just does political theory, political hot takes, And I mean, he always did do that, but it just feels like he's in the kind of the junkyard, like the graveyard of big time influencers. I don't mean that to be offensive or something, Like I said, I think he got the call. You know what I mean? Yeah. Fari says, I sent a poem to the Antelope Hill competition. Ooh, nice. If I win, I'll donate half to our cause, families of our political prisoners, or something like that. That's fabulous, dude. That's really, really good. That's the way to go, for sure. it's funny how like a lot of the Beatles music is almost like music for children in a way. It's just playful and simple. Oh, that's mostly what's his face, Paul McCartney, I guess. I think every musician goes through a Beatles phase, though. I think it's kind of a natural thing that you do. You kind of you should, I think, honestly, because like there's just so much to it. The songwriting and it's a big part of whether you like it or not. It's a big part of our music history, I guess. All right. Ulfric says, to be fair, he may be more focused on raising his kids. Can't blame the guy. Yes, for sure. Splattercat. Crap, I'm late. No, that's a massive thing. And this is his second wife. I don't honestly. I think he does have a kid in it from the first wife. She was Russian, but that's a lot. That's a lot. And I think he's got two kids. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that, but when you get kids in the picture, that's a massive. It's your human being. It's your child. It's like right now I'm be honest. I haven't even looked up some research on like the issues my son's going through at his age, and then what, as a father, as a parent, what should I know? There's different growth periods, with various issues and abilities and challenges, etc. So things are going really good. So I'm happy to say that. Doing a big father-son adventure on Sunday. Can't wait. What's freaking me out in a good way is that he's literally me at that age. Like, what he thinks, feels, his taste in music is just exactly the same as mine when I was his age. It's kind of wild. It's really wild. Your kid, in a way, to some extent, is a kind of a carbon copy of you, and you just you don't try to push it to be that way. It's just natural. Although the kid will be like, "Well, I'm nothing like you. I'm my own person." And you're like, "Okay." Which is fine. Every boy has to distinguish himself from his father and be his own man. It's part of the process. Part of the process. I just saw a quote from Carl Jung about Adolf Hitler being more than a father figure, but a hero figure, a hero archetype. And I think it was Flash who sent me the essay. There's a whole essay on it. I'm gonna check that out. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I think I might be done with this music. I'm gonna switch it out a little bit. All right, give me a minute, and I shall return. Ladies and gentlemen, from Los Angeles, California, The Doors. What you? All right. Crap, I'm late. Okay, what do we got? I have never enjoyed the Beatles, but I do understand what people like. They are great creators. Ulfric says he is also an avatar of Wotan and Vishnu. Who is Paul McCartney? T Rad Dad says sometimes it's best to inspire the Utes more so. Yeah, the Ute than influence. It's a kind of a sort of a Taoist do without doing kind of situation. Like as as they get older, you have to let them do on their own more and more, and that can, to be quite honest, you kind of have to let them make their own mistakes. But I think, you know, teenagers, what have you, as they get older, they're really, really, really sensitive, like hypersensitive to judgment. They don't like being judged, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, there is a sort of a level of like, well, what is judgment? Like, what's it for? What's it about? You know, it's about, you know, doing the right thing. And if you're doing the wrong thing, you're gonna get judged. But here's the deal: like, if you judge yourself according, you have your own standards that you're gonna live up to, then you don't have to worry about other people judging you. You know, it's sort of like, you know, I'll stop telling you to clean your room when you just do it by yourself. You know, like, you know, oh wow, okay, that makes sense. You know, I get it now. You know. All right, the Altarian. I don't know what is an Altarian. The Austrian is what you meant to say. The Austrian painter. T-Rad says it's my job to hold you to a standard, Junior. Austrian, yes. So let me look at my little topic sheet things I was going to talk about. Do the opposite of modern life. So back to the theme of the, you know, what do we do? What's the norm for, you know, how we should act, and in relation to the ethno state, and like really inspiring other whites to join us, you know. And one of the thoughts was to kind of list everything that's normal, not normal, but like common, I guess, you know, and we sort of went over that a little bit earlier. But still, I don't know. It's just there's just so many, like, whites kind of just they're just trying to fly under the radar. They're trying not to kind of get in any kind of trouble or drama. Everyone's got sort of like family issues of some kind or not. You know, that's like this thing or that thing is not going well in their personal lives, and they don't want to engage, you know, in bigger issues. You know, that's like Trump's gonna fix that. I don't have to think about that. You know what I mean? But then if you come on too hard and just go straight, like it's the Jews, you know, then oh well, you're crazy, or you're weird, or I don't know, you know, they don't know the history or this or that, you know. So you can't really go, you know, you can't go full retard on that stuff, you know. Sorry, I'm gonna back out a little bit. Wotan was in Friedrich Nietzsche, then jumped to Hitler when he was born. Nietzsche lost his mind when Wotan left. Carl Jung has some wild ideas. That is wild. That's interesting. It's such a stupid song. Um, it's always like that. Nothing's perfect. I'm gonna change that in a second. I never understood this. Like, why would they do this song? It's so stupid. All right. And we're back. Okay, what time is it? Okay, we're doing fine. We're doing okay on time. Half the guys in my National Alliance chapter were kind of nuts in that way, always fighting each other. So there it is. There it is. I feel kind of like, the stakes are so high, with like everything, and the situation is so bad that a lot of times people in our movement are just kind of overwhelmed. There's like everybody wants things to go the right way, and like we should be doing this or we should be doing that or something, and then consequently there's like all this infighting. You know what I mean? I guess to some extent there is a question of like, what is it about this movement? How do I put this? What does this movement, how do I express this? What kind of person is attracted to this movement? That's actually the question, In my experience, I guess I could say there's certain categories, and they all depend a lot on the age group, the generation you come from. You've got like really big brain, smart ass people that fucking get it, They've done their reading. They just see life for what it is, You've got kind of young, shitlordy guys that just love to be rebellious and do shocking things, and they get it, like they're still on board, but they're still kind of sort of trapped in that youthful high school culture mentality. I don't personally know anybody who's like a weirdo or like the kind of guy that's just like so extreme that you can't relate to him, kind of, you know what I'm saying? I think that those are like the cartoon Nazis. Those are the guys that you see at like the Blood Tribe, that walk around with like Nazi flags in Florida or whatever. I understand that there's like one of those dudes, the guy with the tattoos all over his face, is a confirmed Fed. That's what I've read. But the impression I got about that particular group is that they were like forced into it. That they have like kind of shady backgrounds, and they were offered like you can get out of jail if you do this kind of thing. And that's obviously not the kind of person that we want to represent us. But yeah, there's just, to me, a lot of it is internet culture itself. There's just so many people out there that live to attack people on the internet. I mean, they're just, and I find these people insufferable. Like if you don't say and believe exactly their really hyper specialized ideology, with all their talking points and lingo and what have you, then, you're a weeb, and they're gonna clown you, or whatever. Like I was invited to a Groyper chat room. And I went in, I was like, oh, okay, let's see what we can learn here, see if there's any kind of conversation we can get into, or organizing, who knows what. And I felt like I was back at high school. I mean, it was like, I don't know how much more I can take of this. It was just like, just racist swearing, and every other word is faggot. And I'm like, oh, I don't really, this isn't, I'm too old for this shit. This isn't really going anywhere. It's very provincial in its own way. So let's move on. Reading. Splattercat's got a few things to say. Wow, you guys, give me a minute. I have to kind of catch up with you. National Alliance always fighting each other. Victorian time travelers back about the infighting. An old man in the movement once said something profound and sad about this. Society considers us to be on the extreme end. There are certain personality types that are attracted to what they think is the most extreme. See, this is my point. What's extreme about not wanting to be genocided? I just saw a joke on Instagram where a dude posted something like, I don't mean to be anti-Semitic, but I don't think it's right to bomb children. And look at the irony of that statement. Like if I say that it's not right to bomb children, I'm automatically anti-Semitic. You get the joke. And that's the thing that we've been fighting all along is the dialectic. The Marxist dialectic that we're all evil white supremacists. That's why I really like what Lucas Gage did by creating the term Jewish supremacist. That was brilliant. That was a good flip. That was a good flipperoonie right there, Mr. Gage. The Italian stallion. Anyway, it's a thing. Because I was never an extremist. I never ever. I was just. I mean, I wasn't. I didn't fit in. I wasn't like a normie. But I was never attracted to like, oh, what's the most out there shit I can get into, man? Yeah. I think leftists are more like that, actually, to be honest. That's actually pretty true. Like the lefty loonies that I've known, they're like, designer drugs and just fucked up shit, just weird. The weirder the better. That's like pretty much how they operate, Anyway, society considers us as even if we don't consider ourselves to be extreme. If you make your living in this, there are only so many financial supporters with only so many dollars to go around, and that drives in fighting. Wow. Oaf says, I don't think we should get too excited about fighting. Hitler's group started off brawling in the streets and beer halls. Nice. Hey, speaking of beer halls, look who's here. Oh my God, it's Alcoholic. Holy shit, dude. Well, I've got some beer skis with some lime. How you like them apples? See, I'm not as square as you thought I was. It's a day off. I'm treating myself to one beer. Is that okay? Calm down. Anyway, Splattercat says, that's the thing. We aren't extremists at all. We literally just want our own homeland and to be among our own. But they call us extremists for it. Yeah, I was doing a little research on Christian nationalism. And instead of, well, of course, all the videos out there on the algorithm are against it straight away, And so I was like, okay, I'll check this out and see what these fucking douchebags have to say about it. And there was one with this black politician guy at like some kind of big political meeting thingy, and he was very easily he was conflating Christian nationalism with white nationalism. Like he packaged them together linguistically. And all the shit that he said was just straight out of fucking Karl Marx. It was just boldly and blatantly anti-white and anti-Christian. And you guys know I'm not like a dictionary definition Christian, but there's really something there in terms of like this is a big part of who we are, and that's already, how do I put it? It's like it's a kind of a platform on which we could grow and on which we could, evolve and blah blah blah. You fucking know what I'm trying to say. And Joe go to church on Sundays is doesn't know anything about us. He kind of gets his memes on Facebook, and he's sick of like Biden and Harris and all, but he doesn't really know what's going on. And even when like the lefty lunatics say shit about him, he doesn't even understand what they're saying. He doesn't get like the Marxist origins of that. He doesn't, you see what I'm saying? Like he can't even defend himself because he doesn't know what they're doing to him. It's pretty wild, which is kind of where we should step in, I think, and be like, look, this is what they say about you. These are the policies that they're designing for you. And the truth of the matter is that yes, this is a white thing. There's a very definite white dimension to all of this, And so what about that? And so fucking what? Why not? Why can't whites have their own sovereignty, demographic interests? Why do we have to be forced into blah 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 blah? You guys know all the talking points. So, but the thing of it though is to say those things to the kind of normie Christian white, and to, it's not radicalization, but to like get him or her to recognize that the shit is against them and that they should take their own side. That makes sense? That's all, is to take your own side. You're in a war, and we're here to help you. We're here to show you this is what's going on. And yes, it is racial. As much as, oh, I'm not racist. I know a black guy at work. He's a good guy. Fine, but that doesn't help. It's not going to help you. It's not going to save you. You know. All right. Oh, that came out nice. Snarky. Look at that, girl. All right, let's move on. Reading. Victorian says we need to center our own people. We take a swig of Jameson whenever a Tesla dealership burns. That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, okay, so that's that. All right. I'm wondering if we want to switch over to looking at some cool art books. Yeah, Jeff Winston kind of did that. Maybe yes. So last night I did that, and it was really cool. I'm not gonna go 3 hours tonight like I did yesterday. 3 freaking hours, bros. Woo-hoo! As the audience said, he's on fire tonight. So anyway, let's back out a little bit. We're gonna look at the White People's Quarterly. I did the covers for this. Kind of a nice piece here. I wasn't sure that woman's face would come together, but it did. Whew. Well, golly gee, thanks for saying so. So, it's a damn shame, but like the guy who created this magazine just kind of like disappeared. I don't know why, because he put out like very, very, very good quality stuff. I am gonna turn the music down because I got to do that. So wait a moment. Okay, sorry for the. So anyway, let's move on. High quality stuff here. This is awesome. The Koch certified app. Is it still around? So this is an app you can download to your phone. When you go shopping, you can check to see if products are kosher or halal. And I fucking do this. When I go shopping, I look for the U on the products, and if it's on the product, I will not buy it, because kosher laws go back over 3,000 years, intricately detail which foods the Jews are allowed to eat. Blah blah blah. Kosher certifies agency monitors status of our food products by maintaining records of their ingredients and auditing food manufacturers and their facilities to ensure their tribal laws are being adhered to. What the fuck is that? The Jews are controlling what we eat. Okay? There are around 636 kosher certification agencies in the United States alone. The majority of packaged grocery products in the United States are kosher certified, but revenue derived from this religious practice is highly secretive, and few consumers can even recognize a kosher seal, which is this U, okay? So fuck that, okay? I was very fortunate to actually meet the guy that made this app and runs this company. It was kind of funny. He was at the White Art Collective Music Festival, and he had like a table or something. I came up and I was like, oh wow, yeah, I've heard about you. This is cool. He was giving me all the information about it. And oh, nice to meet you. What's your name? Oh, I'm Donald Kent. And he did like a double take and looked in my face, the Donald Kent. And I'll never forget that. That was like a moment for me that felt like pretty damn cool, Whitedate.net. What am I waiting for? My dudes! I've finally figured it out. Whitedate.net. Okay, I'm going to look that up. Anyway, so there's all kinds of goodies in here. Different articles on a variety of things. Mohammed in Minnesota talks about, as you can imagine, Skinless Frank. I haven't seen or heard anything from Skinless Frank in quite a while, which is upsetting. But he does really insanely cool digital art. So here, this is an article. Look at this. White supremacy is terrorism. White supremacy is terrorism. Right. I understand that I will never understand, but I stand with you, BLM. It's just total freaking, stupidity. Here's to Jody K. Jody, my sweetheart. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've talked to her, but we did a few shows together. She's a fabulous singer-songwriter from UK. There's an article about that. Jason Knight, Arkborn. I think that's a short story. And moving on, we got more stuff. A little bit of Friedrich Nietzsche here. And what do you know? What do you know, ladies and gentlemen? There he is. There he is. There's our guy right there, Donald Kent. Conversations with cover artist Donald Kent. What inspired you to become an artist, and how has your style transformed along the way? So this is great. I really enjoyed doing this. You guys probably know that piece. You've seen it 100 times. Who are the artists that you've looked up to? Are there any art movements or periods you feel particularly drawn to or have influenced your work? What's your opinion in the state of the current white positive art scene? What are our strengths? Where are we lacking? And where can we improve? The war on whites and the ecstasy of becoming who we are. What we are producing connects our ancient past with our distant future. We are standing at the crossroads of history and making history with our music and art. So this is a little bit of Donald Kent. And it wouldn't be Donald Kent with some kick-assery. Yeah, sorry, Bob. We got some cool bean comic book actions in here. Um, good stuff, good stuff. Um, yeah, so there's just a variety of things here. We got Jason Kuna, got Laura Towler, um, Jeff Winston, Charity's Blade. So, Spencer Quinn is a good friend of mine, and he wrote this book, Charity's Blade. I did an interview with him about this. It's if you look around on my what do you call it? If you look around on my YouTube channel, you'll see the interview for talking about that book. My buddy Nullis read the book, and so he did like a review. Some poetry, some art. This is Jay LaDark, my friend Jay LaDark. So I actually own this. I bought a copy of this when I met her at the White Art Collective Music Festival. That was fun. I sat with her and Josh Neal, and it was really neat meeting Josh Neal real life. That was a cool experience. I also have an interview with Jay LaDark on my channel here, if you want to learn more about her. I would also add that she is leading the White Art Collective community on Telegram. So even though we're not out there making shows like Jeff Winston did, we're still around and we're growing and growing and growing. There's lots of artists coming into her group. I'm an admin in the group as well. Pardon me. And we're friends, so we keep in touch and stuff. Although she's busy and I'm busy, but we're on each other's radar. So gosh, man, I mean, this was just such a fabulous magazine, and it's just so sad that it kind of fell out. I don't know what happened to the dude, but he just kind of nobody can reach him anyway. He's gone. Let's look at some chats here and see if I can catch up with you guys a bit. I wasn't sure. The woman's face, become who you are. Yes, that's an awesome app. Great idea. We need a petite black-owned DEI extension to that app. Good point. Very good point. Dude. So okay, bang. We just hit it. This is one of the aspects of the ethno state, is we will totally boycott everything that is anti-white, everything, like everything, and I mean everything, and that could cause some serious issues. This is hypothetical, right? I mean, we're talking about a hypothetical future, but we should be doing that now, guys. We should be doing that now. So I think we as a movement got to start focusing more on that, the power of the penny, so to speak. All right, let's read a little more and I'll pick up another book. Victorian Time Traveler, you can't unsee the kosher shit once you see it. True. Spider-Cat, nice. Hippocratic Oath. Donald Kent with the high bar squat. Yeah, I'm not a bodybuilder dude. I'm a big dude, but I'm not like that guy. I could lie and say that I am. No. I'm the guy that drew that guy. Anyway, what's the point? I'm a martial arts guy though, so like if I had all these people in that stick, I'm going to get handy. Ooh, watch out! It's gonna be fun. Anyway, I'll stop. Let's move on. Victorian Time Traveler. My best squat was 315 pounds for 3 sets. Holy shit, of 5. I don't know if I'll ever get that way. Jilly Storm is here. Hi there, Power of the Pen. Yes, Jilly Storm. I'm so happy you're here. Is this your book? Well, yes and no. I did the covers, the front and the back cover, and I just went over the interview of me in here, but it's not my book per se. I will be showing more other kinds of books shortly after we discuss this. Wolf says Victorian Time Traveler, the Mark Ripto can get you there. Oh yes, I remember the cover. Okay, better go doll. So now this is a little. I don't know if you guys are interested in this. If not, just tell me and I'll move on to something more fun. But as an artist, this is the shit right here. So like getting into understanding drawing, it's kind of like getting under the hood and understanding like how is it that I know how to do what I do. So in my mind, this is what I'm doing is I'm visualizing things in like really mechanical kind of forms, and then kind of putting them together like kind of little 2D 3D robots, so to speak. And then building it out from there. So just like stuff like this seems really weird to the common person, to the beginning art student, but that's the basis of everything. You have to first create what I call the mannequin, and it looks like this. And then you put the skin on the mannequin. You dress the mannequin, as I would call it. This book's pretty freaking sick. It's got tons of cool stuff in it, and I'm always looking for that kind of thing. This is neat right here. It talks about why, like the logic of how clothes fold. So when you're drawing people, you're obviously going to be drawing them in clothes. So depending on the bending and movement of the body, the wrinkles will move with that. There's a type of motion that occurs together with it, which is kind of a neat thing. I don't know if that bores the shit out of you or what, but like as an artist, you gotta fucking know this stuff. It's really important. What else? What else? This book's got some cool fantasy shit in it as well. Just, weird stuff, fun stuff. I kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see the page better. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Like the way eyes work is that it's like an orb, but it's an orb inside a socket, and a lot of people can't really conceive that. They can't sort of understand that. The idea of the head is as like a ball shape, and then you cut out sections. I know I'm kind of rushing through all this stuff, but I really just wanted to give you guys like a peek at kind of how the technology of drawing works. Does that make sense? All right, so it's kind of interesting. Drawing the body in motion. The way this is interesting because like the shoulder is kind of like a ball joint, right? So the arm could move out in any direction, you know. And so you kind of have to know how these different cylinders would move, And all of that is the underdrawing. Now this stuff here is more like if you see there's very loose gesture drawing is what that's called. So the movement of the charcoal, that's kind of more in like the fine art world. Let's see what else I got here. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe that's enough of that. I guess you guys are maybe a little bored. It's very academic. So, let's take a look at, or maybe I'll check the chat first. My daughter will love these tips. She draws dragons. Yeah, I mean, I taught art for years, so it's what I know. This is really cool inside look. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm glad you like it. Let's see if there's anything else in here to share. Yeah, getting into the painting side of things is pretty intense. Shadows, the use of shadows, the anatomy, traditional versus digital, blah 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 blah. So let's move on to words for pictures. So this is just a book about the art and business of writing comics and graphic novels. So this is writing, but there's lots of very, very cool sort of images and things in here. So it sort of interviews people. It talks about, just like the sequence of things, like how things work in comics. The topic's really too big to go into. Like I'd have to do like a whole show on it, but or several shows on it. But it's good to have these books. I think they've got cool. This is a really nice page right here. If I can somehow get that on screen, zoom in a little bit. Sorry, very clunky today. But what a great page. Like the layout. These are what you call floating panels. Here, this one's coming in from off the page. It's overlapping that one, which is overlapping this one. But this one has what's called a gutter, which is a space around it. And so by doing that, it punctuates the image more. There must be something that he's saying or thinking at that moment, because it looks like, I don't know if he's on death row. Is he getting ready to be executed? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a pretty very dramatic moment. The shadows, of course, are really doing all the work. It's a pretty powerful image. Time Traveler says, yeah, that's whose help I need. I'll start listening to this podcast every day, and they'll drive me to get better. Okay, which podcast? Yeah, I don't know if this book is actually really a great example. Here's a neat kind of story right here, though. I'm gonna have to zoom out. Sorry. So this artist right here, Alex Maleev, he is from Romania, and he became huge in comics in the early 2000s. He was famous for his work on Daredevil. And why he was so famous is because he figured out a way to take photos and use Photoshop to make them look like drawings. But then he would like draw over them. He would ink over them. So you can definitely see the drawing, but he's drawing over a photograph. So it's like hyper realistic. And then like the expressiveness of it. Anyway, so he on his run on Daredevil, there's actual neighborhoods in New York City that you can see in there, and then he uses models for all this stuff, and it was like there was nothing like it before him, and of course everybody tried to copy him. They tried to figure out his special sauce, his recipe for Photoshop, blah blah blah, and I had gone to New York City Comic Con one year, and I met him there, and I was like, "Fuck," I was like, super nerd out, and I really, hung out with him for quite a while at his table, just talking all kinds of stuff. And of course, I asked him like, "So, how do you make your art with Photoshop?" He says, "I'm not going to tell you." I'll never forget that. Anyway, somehow or other, we got onto martial arts. He does like Taekwondo, and I do Shaolin. And he's like, "I bet you can stretch really well." And then I like hit the floor and did like a full split. What was I? What the fuck was that? Why was I doing that? I was younger. Okay, so that's how it is when you're young and you want to show off. Moving on. So I'm not super sure this is the best book. It's just, here it is. Here's some great, this is an example of his work on Daredevil. So, it's got a photorealistic quality to it. I guess you can sort of catch that a bit. He actually did a lot of the modeling for Daredevil, which was interesting. Anyway, just really incredible stuff, cool stuff, beautiful. The use of the what do you call it, the Photoshop just brought in a whole new world of detail and stuff. This again is Alex Maleev. It's the guy. He does like fine art, like insanely beautiful paintings. He really really does know his shit. Like he's quite extraordinary. Um, anyway, these are the guys that impress me. Um, David Mack, I think his name is. It's something Mack. I can't remember his first name. I think it's David. I have a kind of a. Kind of like angry at him, and I'll tell you why. Because we're about the same age, and like he got into comics, he got into Marvel, and this kind of style of art is basically what every fine art teacher in America was teaching at the time. That, you collage shit and you make it foofy, fuffy, fluffy, something, something. And there's no story being told. It's all just designy. And like he had this Asian girlfriend that he would always put into the thing, and I was just like, I mean, I could paint just as good as this, and nobody knows that you're just like your work's actually very cheesy because it's like it's what your fucking art teacher told you to do in college. And all he did is he just put Marvel characters in there and his Asian girlfriend. And everybody was like, "Whoa, man, this art's so amazing. David Mack is so good." Wow. And I just was like, "Rah," that kind of shit. When you're in the know, but everybody else is an ignorant goofball, then like, can you get it? I mean, can you put it together? Like that just pissed me off a lot. Because I guess part of it was jealousy, right? I mean, I'm like, okay, why am I not working for Marvel? Why am I, how come, I could have done your shtick easily. I mean, anybody who has a fine art degree from our generation could easily do the same stupid shit you do. Sorry, David. And Dave's like a totally nice guy. Like, he's not a douchebag or anything. He's just a real decent guy. I forget this dude's name. He's like I think he's like a Cantonese American guy. That's another thing about Marvel in the 2000s is they started. Who was the editor? He's Hispanic, and once he became the editor, he just hired all Hispanic dudes. And it really that shit is just so real. It's like, oh, now that a Hispanic guy is the editor at Marvel, he only hires other Hispanics. Like, fuck that, man. Can you see how that's like racial warfare in a sense? I mean, warfare is a strong word, but it's like I'm gonna look out for my people and fuck you. And then after him, it just got more and more and more liberal and more diversified, and you know, white guy go to the back of the line is what it ended up being. Which was shit. It's shit. It's total garbage shit. So fuck that. Anyway, moving on. Which is why I don't try to like get a job at Marvel or DC. Anything else in here? Not so much. Not so much. Moving on. And this guy's Jewish. Okay, just let me know. So maybe we could do something a little more fun. So was anybody in the chat from last night? Did you guys see the show last night? Because the end of the show, we went like a deep dive on like Heavy Metal Magazine, the Warren magazines, Creepy Eerie, that stuff. So we're gonna do that in a second. This, I believe, is Frazetta, Frank Frazetta. Cosmic Ink is back. All right, hold on. Let's catch up on the chat-a-roonies. Give me a moment. Okay, this is really cool. Inside Look. Okay, I read that. I'll start listening. Victorian. Before last, I slipped and fell while trying to open a floodgate and landed right on my hip. That sounds like fun. Even just remembering it makes me shudder. Ouch, x-rays and all, yes. Fascinating. His finished work is polished as fuck. Yeah. Cosmic Ink is back. Cool beans. Victorian, I'm mostly better now. Drove me crazy. I made comics too. Oh, that's cool. Very good. What kind of comics do you make? Hippocratic Oath. I was on last night, and I remember a lady from a Packard. Oh, and a Tommy gun. Yeah, yeah. That was a John De La Rose project. Woo, creepy. Yeah, you guys are ready? Are you ready? So this is, what years? This is volume 1. Collecting creepy 1 to 5. I'm not going to be able to show everything on, I can kind of only fit like one page in at a time. But it's just fun. It's fun to kind of look at this old style. This is when inking was king. You know, like you had to be a really good inker back then. And look at how playful the inking is on this. Like, holy shit, dude. You know, it is kind of magical in a way. I mean, it's a creepy looking dude. But the way that it's constructed, like these kind of lines for the hair, they almost look wet, you know? And then the thinner lines to create the shadow to show the form of his head, light coming down. This is almost ridiculous how loose it is in here. Like this is a person who is like born with a brush in their hand and totally understands inking, you know. So let's have a peek. Yeah, okay, we've got voodoo. See, that's what happens when you go to Haiti. Okay, so let's see. Oh, the shrunken skulls. Those always freak me out, man. What a horrible, horrible thing. So there's like the cursed shrunken skull, you know, or something. These have like such like 1950s horror movie type. You know, the woman ends up with like the shrunken skull, and she kills him and something. So, you know. Okay, this guy here, Al Williamson and Roy Krenkel. Wow. So, I'm gonna say Al Williamson did the inking on it, but let's go in here and do a little bit of a deep dive on this. Look at the freaking inking on the water here. Oh my lord. Oh my lord. I mean, just to understand how to do that and how to put the brush down. Oh my heavens, you know. Beautiful, beautiful anatomy and all of this stuff. Aren't they early issues? Yeah, this one is. These are early. I don't. Let's see if I can find the years. Published in 1964 and 65. Okay, so that's when these came out. Ladies and gentlemen, Al Williamson, amazing, amazing art. Here's an interesting factoid. Al Williamson, this artist, he illustrated the Star Wars comic book when that first came out. And since he's so realistic, he's stylistic and realistic. The panels were taken straight out of the film. Like he somehow or other got the film stills from the movie. And so you would look at the comic and you'd be like, oh my God, I remember that exact moment in the film. And damn, you know, it was really, really, really good. Okay, Reed Crandall is very unique. He's one of the old classics. Let me try to demonstrate something here. So I'll kind of zoom in a bit and look at the construction of the image with many, 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 many little lines, thin lines, many, many, many thin lines. And so if you look at like a dollar bill, that was kind of the old way of illustrating from going back to the turn of the century and before, is like these very, and it's based on a kind of etching where you cut into like a metal plate, and then you use that for printing and books and blah blah blah. So there's some of that carries over into this. Okay, look at the use of the shadows on this village. All you got is black and white. That's it. So what all can you do with it? And so this vampires fly at dusk, so you really get a sense of like the sun is setting over here as the shadows are becoming really hard over here, you know. Beautiful work. They don't make them like they used to. Okay, like you're not gonna find an artist today like this, you know. You just not. It's like they went the way of the dodo. It's kind of sad because it really does have that like American history to it, if you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's kind of charming. So Patty says Al Williamson is one of my faves. The dude started at 17 or something. Yeah, he's totally one of my favorites. Big time. His work on Flash Gordon is king, like fucking king. It's so good. Hippocratic Oath, I'm good enough to come back. I'm good enough to come back. I missed the context. I really like the style. All right, so let's continue. Oh, you guys are in for a treat. Frank Frazetta Comics. Have you ever seen a Frank Frazetta comic? All right, so this is Frank Frazetta cover art, right? Which I think you guys probably know who he is. He's pretty well known. Now this is his comics, so like, let's go in for this. Let's go in and have a look at this shit, man. Like, it's like the heroic masculine, you know, like this, you know what I mean? And like, look at that fucking face. It's so fucking cool, dude. It's just so well done. The use of the brush, it's very, he has like a strange light hand with the brush where he's able to get that kind of quality. It's just holy shit, you know. And then this composition's kind of nice here too, with like, it almost looks like a like fire here, and then inside of it he's drawing this scene with the gray tone of showing the background of the creature, some kind of night creature, werewolf. Look at that there. That's basically a cartoon of him, you know what I mean? It's like him hyper masculinized, like Conan or something, you know. And that's probably the writer of this story right there. I don't know. Anyway, and then of course a good old punch in the nose, you know, to get you started here. Oh my God, look at that! Watch out, a snake! Crack! Oh my God, I tell you, you gotta watch out in the jungle, man. Death at every turn. Death at every turn. The true adventure for the true man. And so we're looking for the what is it called? The werewolf. Oh shit, we found him. It's time. All right, so let's move on. This is just your classic illustration right here, like this whole thing, like the way it all moves, and you know, the whole, just, you know, blah. What can you even say? So when you look, let's go in on little things like this, like look at the plants. I know that's boring, but like this is the kind of shit I do. You know, I'm aware of these type of things, you know. Look at the hair on this thing. I'm aware of how to use the brush in this way. So my work's not comparable to this. This is far better. But it demonstrates to you in a sense that I'm plugged into the history of this illustration, if that makes sense to you. Victorian says, to me, I have a copy of Warhammer 4000K, Rogue Trader from the 80s. I love that artwork so much. Awesome sauce. So, okay. This is an interesting theme that I've noticed in these books. Like, he kills the werewolf, but somehow the werewolf transfers the curse of the werewolf onto him. And slowly Damon backed away from that which he could not understand, but it was too late. Damon had wanted the pelt of Gantiqua, and now it was his to keep for a long time. The end. It's really cool how that works. Like, when you read the stories to yourself, you're kind of like, whatever. You kind of you can feel you feel like it's a movie in your head, which is pretty wild. Now this artist is a guy named Gray Morrow. Gray Morrow. They don't make names like that anymore. Another dude I really love. It's very unique. Frazetta was a brawly baseballer as well as an artist. Spent all his free time doing physical things. Weird contradiction. Actually, you're very, very right. There's like a famous story of him like hitting the baseball so hard that it flew over a building in Brooklyn and they never found it again. Like he really is. He's really unique. There's like they broke the mold, Al Williamson again. Here we can, the stylishness of it is just so marvelous. One thing I love about these old comics too is how they're sometimes every once in a while they'll do like a comic about a comic, like the success story. So, ha ha ha. My little friends, did you like the last yarn old Uncle Creepy spun for you? Well, if you did, I know you'll really go for this. This dilly. It's a killer. And then Baldo, the success of your comic strip has been phenomenal. I speak for the rest of the syndicate when I say we're proud to be distributing it for you. All due to Baldo's genius, start to finish, it's his doing. So like this particular story is about like like a rich publishing tycoon who like takes advantage of a comic book artist. And look at the comic book artist over here. Like, through those early years, my wife Martha was a source of constant inspiration. Think I want to spend the rest of my life married to some creep who rules panel boards? You get your own strip or I get out. So, oh my God, see the kind of shit we got to deal with as cartoonists? And then he's there with his boss. Well, some did not accept my strip immediately. Comments indicated I was on the right track. This stinks. Drawing's amateurish, inking's bad, and the writing, phooey. You ought to look for another ruling panel borders. You ought to look for work ruling panel borders. So there's a bit of humor in here, and in the end, there's some ghouls that come out and kill somebody, But yeah, I think they're just kind of having a gas, just sort of, having a little laugh. I know that, I don't think that is Al Williamson. I think but I guarantee you he took photographs of his friends and put them in here. Anyway, so it's about 11 o'clock. I think it's time we're going to have to wrap it up, gang. I'm sorry. But I hope you enjoyed the show. We had some interesting convo. A little bit of my artwork. A little bit of the classics here. Learned a little bit about how to draw. Talked about the ethno-state. We're remembering Jeff Winston and the White Art Collective. What else? Yeah. So I guess I will wish you guys a wonderful evening. And see you again. Let's see, tomorrow's Friday night. I'm doing Zog Comics Review tomorrow night with Dillard Q. Thurman. It's always a blast because that dude is a rad dude. All right, my friends. Well, let's wrap it up here. I'm gonna check the comments real quick. Time Traveler, hey, good night. I learned some things. Great stuff, Don. Had a blast. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Woo woo. All right, my bros. Love you guys. Have a great night. Thanks again so much for coming. And we'll see you tomorrow.